Crime Curious is a true crime podcast that takes an in-depth look into real cases through the lens of a trained investigator and former prosecutor turned judge.
If you are sensitive to expletives, anatomical descriptions, and accurate descriptions of crime scenes, this podcast may not be suitable for you.
I had a normal life. I had parents, sisters. I had a happy childhood. But like everybody else, I took that for granted. When I was 9 years old, I went to a friend's house for a sleepover for the weekend. When her mom took me back home, there were cop cars everywhere. My friend's mom told me my family was murdered.
My name is Jamie Collins, and Jessi is my cousin. On the day of our family's funeral, I found myself seated in a little white church in Lakeville, Indiana. It was on our family's darkest day.
They were all gone, and here I was, alone. Death seemed like it would be a way out of all the suffering. I would spend the next 29 years fighting, crawling, and clawing my way out of the darkness.
When I first sat down to write this story, I had no way to know what would ultimately transpire. I was the first person that Jessi had ever told her story to. Every time I thought I found the bottom layer of trauma, there was always more.
I'll never be able to escape it.
Jessi was only 9 years old, and this trauma would linger over her for the rest of her life.
I felt like I was trapped in an emotional prison.
We wrote this book to give Jessi a voice. We wrote this to help other people out of the darkness. This is a story of hope and survival of the human spirit.
It is a story of a broken little girl and a resilient woman that she would become.
After 29 years, it was finally time for her story to be told.
Each of us has a different story to tell. My name is Jessi, and this story is about me.
Welcome to Crime Curious. I'm Charnell.
And I'm Megan.
And welcome to a very special episode where we will be interviewing Jessi and Jamie, the author of her book, I Am Jessica. That was the book trailer that we just played for you, and we cannot wait to introduce you. You've heard from Jamie before with the I Am Abigail interview that we did, and this time you get to hear from Jamie again and meet Jessica. We're very excited for this special episode. Let's shake our gree-gree and our toes in the toad. The newest gree-gree that was added. If you're a paying subscriber, you know exactly what we're talking about.
Unfortunately for you.
Yeah. And all right, well, we hope that you all enjoy this very special episode. Welcome, Jessi and Jamie, to Crime Curious Podcast. As you know, I'm Charnell.
And I'm Megan.
How are you ladies today?
Fantastic. Doing really good.
Wonderful. Jamie, if you would like to introduce yourself and how you know Jessi.
Sure, I'd be happy to. I am a mom. I have a 17-year-old son. I'm a wife. I work as a litigation paralegal by day, and then at night I write books. It kind of became a thing. And so I've written 2 books. The first one was I Am Abigail, about Abigail Alvarado, who is a survivor. And then my first book, which is very near and dear to me, is the one we're here to talk about today, and that is called I Am Jessica. And that book tells my cousin's story of tragedy, and her name is Jessi. So I will turn it over to her.
All right. Hi, Jessi.
Okay, so I'm Jessi Toronjo. I'm Jamie's cousin, and I used to work in childcare. Because of health issues, I don't anymore. So I am actually a stay-at-home mom to 2 doggies.
Lovely.
My children are grown, so, I don't stay home with them anymore. But
you probably would, though,
yeah.
right? They just don't want you there anymore because they're adults.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah.
Wonderful.
We are so happy to have you on. Jessi, most of us have read your books. At least there's a lot of us that have. Jamie, your books. Jessi, can you tell us a little bit? I'm interested about like your earliest childhood memories, like the first things that you remember, either good or bad.
My first childhood memories are actually of my dad. I remember going hunting, fishing. My biggest memory that I remember is going to Big Boy with him.
That is a Michigan thing.
It is.
Yes, it is. I remember getting Belgian waffles with whipped cream and cherries on it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really my first memories that I remember.
All right. And you were living in Michigan at that point in time, obviously.
Actually, no.
Were you in
That
Indiana?
was Ohio.
Okay.
Toledo. Yep.
All right. They still have Big Boys there. After that, I feel like it turns into something else, like Shoney's or something, the farther south you get.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah,
it
something
morphs.
like that.
Mm-hmm. But we know at heart it's
Yeah.
really a Big Boy.
So,
Well, actually, it might have been Michigan. I don't know. It could have been because we moved around a lot.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
so tell me about that. How was it that you were moving about?
Well, because I was born in Adrian, Michigan, and then my sister.
gracious. Do you have any idea how
Yeah.
close that is to us?
30 minutes.
No.
That is insane. The connections that we have discovered through me talking to Jamie and reading your book of like, oh my goodness, how did I not know about this? No wonder why we were drawn to one another.
So you're born in
that's
Adrian.
crazy. Yeah, I was born in Adrian, and then a year later we moved to Blissfield. That's where my sister Charnell was born.
Okay.
Yep. And then we moved to Toledo after that, and that's where Jolene was born. And then we lived there until I was 5. And then that's where my dad passed away.
Mm-hmm.
And then my mom met Bob. And then we moved to Florida. And then we moved to Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's when the murder happened. And then I moved to Michigan.
Okay.
Okay.
So you have had 2 younger sisters. You're the oldest.
Yes.
And
Yep, I'm the oldest.
How far apart were you guys in age?
Okay, so it's me and then Janelle, we were like 14 months apart.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jolene, there were 3 years between us.
Okay. That sounds a lot like how I had 3 of my boys. Like almost
Oh,
exactly.
geez, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And how
crazy.
are you and Jamie related?
My dad is her. Wait, hang on. I suck at this. Okay, so her mom and my dad are siblings. Put it that way.
And this was a big family, right?
Didn't your dad
Yeah.
have 7 sisters?
Yes, he did. Poor guy.
I was just going to say, bless his heart. Okay. And so
Yes.
Jamie's mom is one of those 7 sisters.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, she was the eldest of the group.
How many cousins do y'all have in total? Do you even know?
I've never really counted, but it's like over, I'm guessing like a dozen-ish. I mean, it's like a lot.
Yeah, at least.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
And do you guys remember, like as children, did you guys do things together?
Well, we had get-togethers, but it wasn't like all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Like I
and think-
remember. Go ahead.
Sorry, Jess.
No,
I was
you're
going to
good.
say it's kind of interesting because we both were basically related through my mom, her dad's side. But then she ends up with her mom, and I end up with my dad. So we both kind of get a step removed from that side of the family to some extent.
Yes.
Not that we like really are, but just like you go to every gathering, probably not. Or
Nope.
you there for the dinners and stuff, probably not. So it became like we would see each other, but very infrequently. And it's not like we were close or knew one another growing up that much, but we knew who each other were. And
That
I've been
makes
around one
total
another
sense.
some.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. I could see how that could that would happen. Okay. Plus, Jessi's moving around. I mean, I'm sure the move to Florida that happens when you are about 6, right?
Yeah. Yep.
You know, I mean, that distance we're talking back in the 80s.
Yep.
You know, that doesn't help the situation with staying close to familial ties, for sure.
No, it doesn't.
So, and my dad and I moved to Indiana, so it's like he would take me up there in the summers to see my mom. But aside from that, I really wasn't up there. So if it was the summer when Jessi was there, I would see her. Most of the time, she wasn't around when I was there for a month. So we just missed each other a lot.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
So
I do remember going to her graduation. I do remember that.
Okay.
So.
And because your dad's mother lived in Midland, Michigan, right?
She did. Well, she lived in Oil City, which is outside of Midland.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
And then she moved to Saginaw after that.
Oh.
Okay.
Got ya.
Yep.
Okay.
So Jessi, when you would have been how old when your dad passed away? Were you like 5?
Yep, I was 5. Gonna turn 6 in June.
And what do you remember from that about what had happened?
I remember finding him.
Oh gosh.
Okay,
I
so
didn't
there we have
realize that.
would that be fair to say this was like the first major trauma as a child that you'd experienced?
Oh yeah. Yep. I didn't know he was dead. Mm-hmm. I thought he was sleeping.
Sure.
So, it was winter. He used to work on his truck all the time. So we went to church, we came back, I went out there, he was sitting in a chair that I remember. Mm-hmm. And I thought he was sleeping. So I went inside, got my mom, and, she came back in freaking out, telling me to get my sisters upstairs. And I did. And that's basically what I remember.
Yeah. And the interesting part of this, so if you read like the report, my Uncle Eddie, her dad, was found beneath the car.
Right.
But I fully believe that Jessi, in her memory and just maybe in her dreams about it, she was home when Dawn found him for sure. And she was told to take her sisters and go upstairs. So I think it's like her mind has pieced it together that way, if that makes sense.
Okay.
It does. Yeah. Because I was going to say, that was different from what I remembered. But I thought maybe my memory just wasn't remembering from the book. Because it's been a few weeks now since I read it. So, okay.
Was there anything suspicious about those circumstances or concerning?
Not really. He worked on cars all the time, and what the family believes happened is just, I think he didn't realize that there wasn't enough ventilation in there.
Yeah.
And I think it overcame him because it's something he did all the time. And I don't think he never would have done anything like that, knowing that Dawn and the girls were going to come home. Like, I think it truly was a freak accident.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So carbon monoxide poisoning, we hear all the time, especially this time of year, those of us that live in cold weather, about, keeping our garage door shut, don't start your car in the garage type of thing. And it was truly just an accident.
Yep.
So after your dad passed away, how did things go in the family? How were things with your mom?
Well, she was seeing Bob, and it was a whirlwind.
How'd she even meet him?
Didn't. Through his cousin. She lived in Toledo, and they were friends, and she met him through her.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Because he lived in Florida at that time, right? Okay, yeah.
Yep. And within, 8 months, they were married?
Yeah.
Yeah, and to back up a little bit, Bob had lost his wife to cancer, and then Dawn had lost her husband, obviously, to this carbon monoxide accident. But it was very quick. I mean, even as just a part of the family, it seemed like 6 months later, it was all like full swing, and we were like, who's this guy? Like, it did feel kind of out of nowhere to us.
Absolutely.
But I think they had socially been around one another, or would have like gatherings, and they would kind of be around one another. So they probably talked more than we realized, like earlier on.
Sure. But still, with our Patreon exclusive episode that we covered, part of this story, when we got to this part, I really talked about how, yes, maybe they did know each other and whatnot, but there's that trauma bonding that happens, and just the coping skills that happen. And, it felt like, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jamie, but you did a beautiful job with your words. For anybody who hasn't read any of Jamie's work, she's a phenomenal author, but just the way that you wrote it, you did touch on, this in itself and the quickness, no judgment whatsoever on Bob or Dawn, but it did feel like they kind of used each other for coping skills. But then the kids, which was very traditional back in the 80s, were kind of left to just cope on their own and to just kind of get on board with like, this is what we're doing now.
Here's our new family.
This is our new family, and you guys just need to adjust to it. And, there was that old, kids are very resilient, and stigma around, like, not stigma, but that's the wrong word. Sorry. I have not had enough coffee today.
No, we're raised a little different than
wine.
So I get it.
We were. Yeah, that too. Oh, it's afternoon. Yes.
It's acceptable to drink.
It is acceptable. And it's God's day. He drank wine too. It's fine.
I've already had a glass. So
perfect.
Loosen up.
Oh, shoot. But
that's
truly, kids aren't, allowed. Like, they weren't allowed. It felt like, Jessi, like you and your sisters weren't allowed to grieve before just being thrown into this new family atmosphere. And I do think we do things differently today, but.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Well, and I think, too, with her mom, I mean, it's like we're all here sitting here today being who we are, but this was a different time and place.
Agreed.
Like,
absolutely.
Women were not out in droves in the work field. They didn't really own homes.
Mm-mm.
It was like a different time and place. So for Dawn now to be left with 3 little girls to raise and like not a career and not really anything, it's like I get how that would have become an appealing situation with Bob if he seemed to be a nice man.
Me too.
100%.
We did speak about that because my opinion was, again, how the climate was for women in the 80s. The thought of being a single mom, raising kids and trying to support them without probably any type of degree or anything like that at the time, you get used to being either a stay-at-home mom or just working for enough income to bring in supplemental to the family. And so now here she was, and sometimes it's a survival decision.
Well, yeah, that too. And the psychology was different back then. Like, people weren't going to see therapists, and it wasn't as mainstream as it is now. So I think it's like you just made a choice and did what you felt was best. And that had pros and cons no matter what you did. And that's just how it went.
So when you got moved to Florida, because whirlwind, they're married within 8 months, and all of a sudden you and your sisters find yourself in Florida. Can you tell me a little bit about how that felt and what that looked like with your siblings and with your new siblings?
Back then, I was really pissed off that my dad had just died. And here I have 2 new siblings, a new house. So nothing was familiar, a brand new state. So, yeah, I was not happy. I didn't want to be there. I didn't want a new father figure. I didn't want new siblings. So, yeah, I was actually quite pissed off. And, I didn't want any of it. None of it.
Tell me about your new siblings, or at least what your impression was when you first met them.
Okay, well, Jeff, I thought he was really tall and skinny and, had big hair.
You're right. 80s hair.
80s.
Yep, the 80s hair. Jackie, I thought she was beautiful. She had the longish hair, not super long, but curly, just the 80s style back then. It was really pretty. And, I thought she was nice, quiet.
How old were they?
Oh God. Okay. Hang on. So I was
I'm making you do math.
I know. And I hate math. Oh, good.
Jeff
Thank
was
you, Jamie.
8 years older than Jessi, and Jackie was 5 years older. So at the time that Jessi was 9, Jeff would have been 17, and Jackie would have been 14.
Thank you.
Yeah, so a little older, a little bit in different areas of their stages of their life, for sure, when you guys became a blended family.
Yeah.
Then.
Oh, for sure.
And
for sure.
Jessi, I didn't really talk about this for our Patreons, but what I enjoyed that Jamie had put in some very specific examples of how, in my opinion, the way that Jeff treated you in the calculated way that he did it when adults weren't around really, to me, showed the darkness that lived within, and you seemed to be the only one that could see it and truly there was something about you that pulled it out of him, and he acted upon that. Could you just kind of tell the audience a little bit of what it was like to live with him from your perspective?
It was really scary. I think he pinpointed me because I was the oldest, and I acted out myself.
Sure.
So I think he just knew because he was older and could express himself better that, he could get away with doing stuff and tell them, well, look, she's acting out. You're not going to believe her,
Manipulate it back to you.
Yeah. So the stuff he did, like chasing me through picker fields and locking me outside naked and, just stuff that
cruel things.
Yes, it's cruel. Like people are like, no, that's sibling stuff. No, that's not. That is not sibling stuff.
Is that how the parents were handling at that point? Your mom and your new stepdad, was that this is just sibling rivalry?
Oh, they didn't believe me.
Okay.
Yeah, they didn't know about the big incidents, or she would say it, but they wouldn't believe it. Like, oh, he wouldn't pretend to throw a blow dryer in the bathtub. That's ridiculous. Like, it was just like she was dismissed a lot.
Yeah, like I was making it up, stuff like that. So
you mentioned
it was very.
Go ahead. I would say you mentioned you were acting out, Jamie, or I'm sorry, Jessi. What were you doing specifically? Do you remember?
Not really. I was just pissed off. So, like, I guess just being defiant.
Sure. Yeah.
Not really listening to my mom, talking back, just stuff like that.
Typical childhood experiences then. I mean, you were just acting out like a typical child.
Yeah. Yeah.
And her two sisters were more like shy and compliant. And I think that's a big piece of it. Like, I think honestly, even if this had never happened, I think Jessi just had a different personality type. Like she was more like her dad and kind of was the fun one or the loud one or the one that didn't always listen, and her sisters weren't like that. So I think she always just felt different, period. But then after the murders, I think she felt even more like alone in that way. Like she's not like the others.
Oh, sure.
So with everything going on at home, though, you did end up acclimating pretty well to Florida. Like you made friends.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I ended up liking Florida.
Okay. And can you tell me a little bit about that and the friendships that you formed?
I don't really remember the people. I remember the school, Pelican Elementary. I remember there were hamsters in the room. One got loose one time. I thought that was pretty funny.
It still would be.
Right.
Yeah. So, stuff like that. I just, there was a ball field. I don't know how far away it was, but I remember going to the ball field. Like it was fun because it was normally nice out. So, and I loved being outside.
Yeah.
So, I'd meet my friends down at the ball field or, we just hung out and like, I don't remember my friends, but I remember, hanging out with them.
And Bob was a pastor at a church at that time.
Nope. He worked for a bank at that time.
He worked for a bank. Now, at some point in time, how did you guys come to live in? We call it a manse here, but basically it's a parsonage, right? The church owns this house.
Yes. I don't know how he actually became a pastor, but
I think he went to school for it. I'm pretty positive.
Okay.
So he was working and then took an interest in it, and it's something he wanted to do. And then it seemed like this offer came up in Indiana for him to come and be the minister of this church. And so supposedly that's why Jessi and her family believed that they moved. But then there was obviously other stuff going on in the background.
Okay.
Like what?
It was, at the time, it was something about, I don't even remember the exact details. It's just not. It was something about the bank he worked at. There was a huge, legal issue that arose with, money laundering or something. And I think it was related to, a cartel.
Wow.
Something like that. And
dang.
Obviously a dangerous situation. And so there's a lot of speculation on that being the reason that they actually had left. But
okay,
whether it was or not, I don't know. Nothing ever came Bob's way about it. I don't think he was in the fray of it really, but he ended up moving to Indiana to basically step into this minister thing that he had been training for.
And that's a hard adjustment from the weather of Florida to the weather of Indiana for anybody. Our worldwide listeners that don't know, they're two totally different climates all year round.
Oh, yes, it is. Yes, it is.
So here you are, Jessi, not even wanting to move to Florida, then ending up falling in love with Florida, and then now being moved to Lakeville, Indiana.
Yep. Yep. I was pissed about that too.
Oh, I bet. Yep.
Were all the kids?
No, like my sisters were pretty easygoing.
Okay.
They didn't really speak up. It was me.
Sure.
I voiced my opinion quite a bit.
Maybe
so,
they didn't need to because they had big sister Jessi to do it for them too.
Oh, actually, that's a good point. I never thought about that.
Yeah.
No, it was always Jessi and Jeff who were the two to throw the fit or be pissed, basically, I think, for most things.
Yep.
Well, and your step siblings, I mean, they're older in age when they end up moving to Indiana, right? So they're basically in high school, middle school age, and Jeff definitely in high school, and then they get ripped out of what they know also.
Oh, yeah, and they had been there their whole life, so...
And like this was their first time moving away from where they were last with their mother, that they lost. Whereas you guys, this was now your second move from moving away from where you last were with your father. So I imagine that wasn't easy for them either.
No,
I don't think that would be well received by any teenager, to be honect.
No,
definitely not.
Place with cornfields and cold weather, and we're going to be at a little church. It's going to be great.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think that it is so much easier for us who have grown up around here and we don't know anything different than for people who that try to come here, right, into these type of rural areas. That's always a hard word for me to say. I almost nailed it. Almost.
We say often on this podcast, words are hard.
Words are so hard. And so, I mean, that would be to go from a place where there was a lot of things to do, especially like the beach, and all of that, to then here's Indiana. We have corn, we have snow, wind. That's about it. Right, cows. Yes, sometimes it smells like cows or pigs.
Yes, yes,
and town gossip, and that's what we've got.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, gracious.
So around how old would you have been then when you guys moved to Indiana?
7.
Okay. And then you acclimated okay?
Kind of. I mean, like I said, I was pissed at first. And then once I started making friends, then I was okay.
Sure.
Because then I realized, like, my mom, I had free reign. I could ride my bike 5 miles up the road. I had babysitting jobs. I had, so once I got acclimated and made friends, then I was okay, for that part,
Sure.
Never for the Bob part, really, but for the rest.
Right,
for the rest.
right.
What was your relationship like with your stepfather?
Not very good. He was an authoritarian. So my real dad, he did use a belt,
80s.
but he loved me, and I knew that.
Yeah.
So for me, it was like, yes, you're going to whoop my ass, but I know you love me, For Bob, he used a belt at first, and I was like, no, you don't love me. I don't love you.
Right.
So I did not like him.
Yeah.
I was
at that point, it just feels like abuse.
Yeah.
Because there's no emotional and stable connection there before going to that authority.
Yeah,
I mean, truly.
like I already don't like you, and now I don't like you even more.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, think about that. That's just an adult hitting you at that point in time.
It is.
Yeah, I could see how. Add that to the trauma checklist too. I mean, just because that's not. And truly, like in the state of Michigan, Megan and I, we know the child protection law in and out. That's for sure. And using an implement like that isn't illegal until it leaves a bruise.
Right.
And now you've crossed the line over into, legalities there, and it's considered abuse. And, and for good reason, because it does just feel like this adult is just hitting me, even for people who have an established connection. So I can't imagine it's much worse when you don't have that actual relationship yet.
Exactly.
How was your relationship with your mom after the move to Indiana?
I felt like she didn't love me.
Oh,
sure.
Okay. Just like she took his side?
I could see that.
Yeah, I felt like she didn't want me. I felt like I was just a burden, a problem. She was always yelling at me. I mean, looking back now, yes, I was a shit. I get that. I get that.
Sure.
She was doing what she had to, to keep me under control. I get that. But, as a child, you don't see that part. You see my mom's always yelling at me. She's, always mad at me. And I didn't feel loved. I felt like I didn't belong there. So we didn't have a very good relationship.
Sure.
Well,
and kids, people don't realize, but kids take on everything. They internalize everything. So they take it on as their own. So if your mom is struggling, that she's not able to really properly grieve the loss of your father. Then she's got to acclimate to this new man, right? And his rules and how he's going to live.
And we kept our men happy in the 80s.
We did. That was how women, operated back then. So she's got her own things as well. And then frustration of, anytime you're acting like a normal kid and acting out. And so as kids, you don't see that, but you feel it and you take it all on as your own. Truly.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Jessi, can you tell us a little bit about the last day that you saw your family?
Well, my sister Janelle and I were supposed to go to a friend's house for the weekend, and my mom was in the bathroom, and my friend was, getting ready to pick us up, and I walked in there, and I'm like, okay, we're getting ready to go, and she's like, well, you're just going, and I was like, what? So I started to throw a fit, and I was like, no, Janelle's supposed to come with me, and she's like, she's not going, only you, and so I started to try to throw a bigger fit, and she gave me the look, and I was like, oh shit, okay, It's the look. So then I was like, fine, but yeah, that was.
And did she?
Pretty much.
Do you ever know why she wouldn't? Did Janelle get in trouble?
No, I don't. I honestly don't know why she didn't let her go. Wow. I really don't. I mean, to this day, it just, I don't know. It just. And I wish she would have, but
of course, right.
Why would
you can't change the past? But
no.
Why would she have been going with you to your friend's house?
Well, we hung out because we were so close in age.
Yeah,
we hung out with a lot of the same friends.
Oh yeah.
So
it would have been normal then for her to have gone with you on any other given day.
Oh yeah, yep.
All right. Yep, that's how my boys are. They all have the same circle of friends.
Yeah, my sister's 17 months younger than I am. Like we were dressed as twins and hung out together, and that's how it works.
Pretty much. Yeah, that's how we were. And my mom used to dress us the same.
We're relatively the same age, so I remember that time frame as well.
What year were you born, Jessi?
79.
Oh, okay.
You're like 2 years younger than I am. I was 77. So, but again, that same time frame. Yeah.
Yep.
So when you get to your friend's house, I'm assuming just a typical weekend. You guys are having a good time, slumber partying and eating snacks and watching movies.
Yep, pretty much.
And at what point in time were you supposed to go home?
I was supposed to be home in time for church on Sunday morning.
Okay. Sure. New pastor's daughter, right? So that was typical. You would have had to have been home to go to church.
Yes. Yep.
And then can you tell us what happened when you got home?
Yeah. Okay, so
take a deep breath, right?
And just get through it as fast as you want to, or don't say it at all. However you want.
No,
honey.
it's okay. It's okay. So we pull up. I see this upside down danger sign, and I'm like looking at it, and the first thought in my head is, what happened to my dog? Because we had this husky Major, and I'm like, something happened to my dog. What's going on? There's people everywhere. There's cops. And I really didn't know what was going on. And so my friend's mom pulled up into the driveway, and it's a big parking lot. Mm-hmm. And so we pull up, this cop comes up, and he comes to her door, and she rolls her window down, and he says, can I speak to you? And so she gets out. They go in front of the van, and all of a sudden I see her just break down. And
sure,
I'm thinking in my head, what is going on?
Right.
My dog must be dead. It's still my dog,
Of course, yeah. Because why would your 9-year-old brain go anywhere else?
Right. Yeah. So then she comes to my side, opens the door, and she's like, you know, I have to talk to you. I have to tell you something. And that's when she told me that everybody was gone. And I broke down. I didn't even know what to think. You know,
Of course.
what do you think at 9 years old? You can't even fathom what's happening, you know?
No. And now your brain is in survival mode. You know, your brain
Yeah.
and body have suffered such a shock that it is firing literally at all cylinders, just trying to keep you in a state of survival, of breathing.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I just remember crying for days.
Oh,
days.
Sure.
Like, I don't remember much. Like, I just remember they took me back to their house, and I just remember crying.
Sure. The friend's
Like,
mom took you
Yep.
back. Okay. I have an odd question that neither one of you might even have an answer for, but just being in the line of work that Megan and I are in, did she choose to tell you, or did the police kind of put that on her? That piece is always really odd to me, that she took that, like, did the police offered to tell you and she thought it would be best from, someone that you already knew? I don't know, but I'm just thinking that, my heart went out to her too.
Like, yeah, Mom, I can see it though, because I can't imagine, like, I put myself in that situation, like letting this stranger police officer break that news. Yep. I think I would step in even if I didn't want to break the news.
I agree.
Right.
Yeah, I wondered if she did that, because I definitely would have too, Jamie, just like you said, just as a mom.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Jamie, I know that you did a lot of research, especially with like police reports and statements and such that were made. And with Jessi being in the state that she was in and just kind of crying for those, entire 3 days, if not more, were there any interviews that happened? And do you remember anything that was documented in terms of statements that were made?
That I don't know. And so at that time, I'm living in Indianapolis with my dad, so like about 3 hours away from where this all happened. And so you have to understand that, like, there's when all the town people and everyone knew, was probably on the news and everything. I knew when my dad got the call from family, and then my dad told me at our house. Like, I remember he was like, Jamie, I need you to come downstairs. I need to tell you something. And it was like the only time I remember him ever doing that. Like, it was like this serious, formal feeling thing. And so I came downstairs, and I just remember him telling me that, sorry.
That's okay.
That there had been a tragedy, and that they had been murdered, and that they were shot in their home. But that the good news was that Jessi was still alive.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember being grateful in that moment.
Oh, absolutely.
But looking back now, like, from the seat I have today, it feels like a selfish thing to be grateful for that, because I know what it did to her and to her life.
But how old were you, Jamie?
I was about 12. I'm 3 years older than Jessi.
Yeah, I think there's a beautiful narcissism about being a preteen that it does go directly to you, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's just one of those things too, where you're like, you know your cousin, you love your cousin, even if you're not together all the time. So it is almost that relief that, okay, she made it. Like, she didn't get taken too.
It's a normal reaction, because it's like, if there's any scenario where something terrible happens to part of a whole family, you want someone to have survived, or for there to be anyone left. It's like this clinging to what's left kind of a thing. So I think it is normal.
Yes, absolutely. Well, and truly, it's hard to fathom the 4 deaths, but it would be even harder to fathom 5. I mean, again, that's your brain going to what it can cling to cope as you experience the trauma as well. And so,
I think there's a different feeling too, I think. And that's the thing, some people, I think, unless they've been through it, it's hard to understand. You can kind of imagine it, but it's like, it's one thing to say, hey, like, part of the family was in a car wreck today, right, and they were hit by a drunk driver and they all died. Like, that's one thing, but it's like, you sit and play in your mind, like, the terrible thing that happened to them, like, on a loop. Like, you can't even think about the loss without thinking about how and why. And it's just like this, it's like a layer of trauma above the trauma, if that makes sense. Because
it does. I actually was just going to say that. Yes, I was just going to say it is a whole another layer of trauma, that one that probably often goes unrecognized for the general person just listening to the story, that they don't even think about truly in a tragedy like this, and hearing how it happened, how you can't help but put yourself in your loved one's position. Right. But that's not typically, people read about things in newspapers or whatever. That's not typically what they do. So that makes complete sense. It is a whole
it's
nother
like if
layer.
it was your mom or your sister,
Right.
it feels a whole lot different than like, oh, you watched a show on 48 Hours and it was a good one.
Absolutely.
Like it's a personal experience and a personal loss. It's different.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And you think about so much more, I would imagine, that, other people just wouldn't. And so I definitely understand that. Jessi, did they, so this is what I wasn't clear on. They had only told you in your 9-year-old, self that your family had been shot, correct?
I don't even know if they told me they had been shot.
Okay, I
they
wondered
said they were
that.
Gone.
Okay, yep, yeah, that's what I'd wonder, because I believe that's really how Jamie worded it. That was my understanding from the book. It's just like you just knew they were gone, and then pieced together things from like adults talking around you, rather than to you.
I was never told that they were shot.
Okay,
what did you think had happened?
I really had no clue. Like nobody. So my mom's side of the family, I do love them. I don't really talk to them anymore. I do talk to one of my cousins, but they're more of the it's done, get over it type of family.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't ever talked about. I couldn't talk about them. It was a hush-hush thing. So for me, I really had no clue what had really happened. So for me, I had to make up stuff in my head.
Yeah. Of course.
Brain fills in the blanks.
Yeah. So I thought that Bob had killed them and then killed himself. Mm-hmm. That's what I thought for all those years.
Which that would make sense when you're experiencing the things that you experienced with Bob, right? You experienced his discipline, his meanness, is what I'm sure it felt like. So it seems your brain could piece that together of this seems logical.
Right. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Your step siblings were not there either. They were both gone the day of the massacre.
Yep.
When was the next time you saw them after being told your family was gone?
I remember going to Red Lobster. I don't know how many days after it was, but I do remember going to Red Lobster because I was eating the shrimp tails.
Okay. Isn't that funny?
I really don't know why I remember that, but I was eating the shrimp tails. They were crunchy, and they were like, you're not supposed to eat those.
That's fantastic. Those sensory things, though, that's what helps you pinpoint key memories.
Yep.
Yeah, so, but that's the first time I remember being with them. So I don't know how long after that was. I really don't remember. I suck with timing, so. But, yeah, that's the first time I remember seeing them after that.
Mm-hmm.
Jamie, what kind of an investigation was being done at this point in time by law enforcement? Did they have suspects?
There's like what I know now.
Yeah.
And from piecing it together, then I knew nothing. But it did hit the news. This was a big time story. Like it was running on the local news here in Indiana. It was like a big deal.
Of course.
And it got picked up by like the New York Times. It was everywhere at that time just because it was a minister and the whole family and such a violent, terrible thing. But what we know now looking back is that it depends who you talk to about this. Some would say that they were pinpointing Jeff for this, but the truth is if you were talking to Jeff and looking at all the circumstances around what had happened, everything points to Jeff. Even the things that come out of Jeff's mouth point to Jeff. And so it's one of those things where circumstantially, if you are getting all the information and you're listening to it all and taking it all in, it's pointing you in a direction. And it's not to say where they're like 100% he did this. It's just this is all pointing this direction. So he and his sister pretend he got railroaded in all of this. In reality, if you look at all the circumstantial stuff, it was just so much of it, like so much of it. There's no way they could have done their job if they weren't looking at
Agreed.
Jeff.
And just to clarify too for our listeners, you can absolutely 100% convict on circumstantial evidence if you believe it to be true. So I think sometimes people use the terminology circumstantial evidence, and to them it means something less than beyond a reasonable doubt, and it absolutely is not. You can totally convict on that.
Yeah, and sometimes they're the stronger cases, honestly. And I think that's the thing that makes me crazy about this one is I think they tether to, like, was there DNA and all this stuff. Like, back at that time, It wasn't all what it is now. It was different. And circumstantially, if everything is so clicking into place to show it was him, I think they still considered everything and they were trying to look at all the things. But it's just like you can't take your eyes off what's directly in front of you. And the things that are happening were so big. So it's like,
yes,
I don't want you to give everything because I really want people to read this to get the big picture, but can you give a couple of examples of what had been happening in Jeff's life around that time that maybe motive?
Prior to this, and this is interesting too because it gets rewritten a little bit depending who you talk to.
Sure.
But basically, Jeff was kind of a troublemaker and rebelling just like Jessi was, but at a heightened level because he was an older teenager.
Sure.
So at this time, he's like 17. He's still super pissed off his mom died. He literally hates Dawn, my Aunt Dawn, Jessi's mom, hates her guts, like would literally have the earth just swallow her up if he could. And Dawn had expressed to her best friend Mona at times that he would look at her like it with so much hate that it was like there was fire coming from his eyes. Like she knew he hated her. Like it was just a known every day on eggshells being in a home with this 17-year-old who literally hates your guts. And so I've lost my question. What was the question?
Well, to go along with the acting out, he had been in trouble prior to this event.
He had. Sorry, I'm back. Okay.
There you go.
He had been in trouble for local theft, and he had been drinking and just getting in a lot of trouble. It had gotten to the point where Bob had gotten pissed about it, like, you need to knock it off. And he had actually removed the car insurance from Jeff's Mustang for 6 months. Like, hey, you've been acting up, and because of this, like, you're grounded and you're not driving your Mustang, and I'm even canceling the insurance. That's how pissed I am about this. So that's kind of going into this. Jeff and his dad are very much at odds. And the prom was this time, that night, actually.
Yes.
And basically he was dating this girl, Darla. They were very much at the time teenagers in love, going to go to the prom. Jeff is pissed that his dad has told him he's not driving his own date to the prom. Like his daddy is going to escort them to the prom. Like, imagine 17, it's like we look at it and we're like, well, that's dumb. Get over it, whatever. But when you're 17, you'd rather die than have your like dad transporting you, like you're being chaperoned.
Of course.
And then he was also told that he wasn't going to be allowed to go to like the after events. At some point, I do think Bob relents on the second piece of that potentially, but he never relents on the fact that Jeff is not driving to the prom. And on the actual day prior to the day of the murders, but prior to that morning, Jeff is out in the front yard washing his Mustang. And at one point, Bob comes out and is like, I don't know why you're washing the car. You're not driving it. And a church member saw this exchange.
Okay.
So it's like, even as of that afternoon, Bob was saying, you're not driving it. And there was no insurance on the car. I mean, it's, Bob was
he
kind of a
hadn't changed his mind
person
on that.
Yeah. So not happening. So some of the stuff gets spun other ways, but in reality, I think Jeff was so incredibly pissed and embarrassed that his dad was like ruining this last big senior prom moment with his girlfriend, and he probably felt humiliated and resentful about it.
And he does end up going to prom. I mean, from what we know, he went, he shows up at the girlfriend's house and they end up going to prom, and he's gone most of the night then, correct? Or is he gone the whole night?
He drives his Mustang. Yes, he drives his Mustang and they go to the prom. There's some timing as far as like there were some prom goers because Bob knew all the local teenagers, and there were some girls that were going to come over and show Bob and Dawn their dresses, you know, like, hey, stop by, show us your dresses or whatever. And so they were going to stop by to show the dresses. And they come, I don't remember the time, it's been a while, but let's say 4:30, 5 o'clock, I don't recall. But when they come show the dresses, the house is locked and no one comes to the door.
Okay.
And Jeff is already gone with the Mustang at that time.
All right.
And that's not normal. That house was never locked.
No, it's
ever.
a manse. It's a parsonage. People, kind of the open door policy, right? Parishioners are going to come in.
Yes. Yep. Anybody could come over. So that was not normal.
And where was the why can't I remember the stepsister's name?
Jackie.
Where was Jackie?
She was at a camp.
Okay.
Because she was like a counselor there.
Like a church camp or something, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think.
Yep.
And Jeff and Jackie had a good relationship, right? And okay.
Yes, they did.
All right. That's
I think she got tired of his crap too, to be honest, because she was more like Jessie's little sisters, where she was like quiet and compliant and just did what her dad said and didn't ever talk back or anything. And Jeff was the one always carrying the banner for the rebellion kind of thing. So I think, and I'm not her, but it seems like she probably would have been like, I wish he would just do what he's supposed to do. I wish he would quit getting in trouble. I wish he wouldn't make such a fuss all the time.
Yeah. Make the home life just a little bit more stable and peaceful.
Yeah.
How long until there were criminal charges in this case?
Oh, geez, 13 years.
Okay. So in the meantime, these 13 years, there's no charges. And where are you, Jessi? Where are you at this point?
Midland, Michigan.
And who were you staying with?
Actually, I had my own trailer. I bought it with my inheritance money. And by this time, Tyson was my boyfriend at the time, but we had, I think I had both my kids at this time. So they were super young. But yeah, so I had my trailer.
You were 23 when he got arrested, I think.
Okay. So yeah, I had both my kids. I had both my kids and Tyson. So yeah.
So what brought you back to Midland? Who did you stay with? Like, were you in foster care? Did you stay with families? And how did you come to be in Midland and meet Tyson?
Okay. So after it all happened, my mom's dad brought me back to live with them. They couldn't really handle me because I cried all the time. I was super sad. And they're an older couple. So, it makes sense. They're just not equipped for that.
Kids are to be seen, not heard, and we don't know how to handle trauma.
Yeah. So they sent me to Midland to live with my aunt who had 3 children, thinking maybe if I was around kids, it would help.
No.
Can I ask, aunt on whose side? On your mom's side. On your mom's side. Okay.
My mom's side.
And she was younger too. She was pretty young.
All right.
12 years apart.
The aunt was? Oh gosh. Okay.
Yeah. 12 years apart.
Yeah.
So not that many years apart.
No, that's how many years apart my husband and I are. I mean, just to give you some perspective.
And Charnell's far more mature than Matt is.
Yes, I am.
Yeah. So, but yeah. So I went to live with them, and I love my uncle, but he was not the nicest person at that time. Called me a little shithead, just wasn't the nicest. And, I did rebel. So I wasn't the easiest to live with. I had all this trauma. I was cutting.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't let me talk about anything.
Right.
It's all pent up, and I had to release it somewhere. So I was cutting at the time. So they were dealing with that on top of everything. And I don't know, like, Christmases, they would get all these gifts, and I would get like one thing.
Oh gosh!
So you weren't treated as a member of the family; you were a visitor.
Yeah. Yes. It was a cool gift. I'll give them that. It was, like a castle Lego. Like, I loved Legos back then, so it was cool. But I felt the indifference.
Right. I mean, you're already struggling to feel like you're not fitting in, right? And then there's things happening in your environment that are kind of, doing nothing but conferring it to your mind. Like, yeah.
Well, it's like basically all these people seemingly to her at that age trying to get her to pretend that she never had the life she had and that she never had the family she had and that she just needs to be happy with this now.
Yes.
She's the only one carrying it all.
Which I think is very common for the time.
Well, let's, just to be clear, it would be fair to say throughout the rest of your childhood, you never received any type of counseling, psychiatric assistance, anything.
Well, they tried one time, but it was a fucking sports doctor.
What? Were you
Swear to
playing
God.
sports?
What?
Sports doctor,
It was
sports
this old
therapist.
ass man.
Oh,
Sports therapist.
no.
Yeah. Sports therapist. And he kept trying to tell me I did not remember my dad. I was like, yes, I do. No, you don't.
My God.
Yes, I do. And it was, oh my God, it was awful.
So in all of
So
his
I-
experience with soccer, he decided that a 5-year-old couldn't remember her biological father.
I was 11 at this time, 12 maybe. I was like,
Wow.
yeah, I remember my dad.
Well, I
you're
mean,
stupid.
from when you were 5,
Yeah.
though, right?
Oh, yeah, when I was 5, yes. I was like,
Oh.
you're stupid. So I shut down. I was like, I'm not seeing him again. I'm not doing it.
Of
That
course
gives you
would.
a really bad taste for any type of counseling or attempt at opening up, too, right? Because
Yeah.
he's supposed to be a
Mhm.
professional. And so how can I
Yeah.
talk to everybody else if this dickhead doesn't even believe me?
First of all,
Like, this
Exactly.
is what help looks like. Good luck.
right. You lost me at old ass man
Right.
anyway. Like for the time,
Exactly.
for the time, you just know that they're not going to really be trauma informed. But then
Yeah.
sports, I mean, I love sports, but I know the difference between someone who needs, to get over their own fear and doubt for performance anxiety and someone who's been through significant trauma who needs actual help.
Right.
Oh God,
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
It was bad. So it was so bad. So I don't know. After all this, I was just like, you know what? Fuck this. So I ended up running away.
Okay.
Sure, yeah.
And
Where'd you run to? How far did you make it?
okay, so actually my aunt had just bought me contacts and I was like, cool. And we went to Pizza Sam's downtown.
I
And
love Pizza Sam's.
I made the decision. Yep, I made the decision to run away. And I said I had to go to the bathroom and I slipped out the side door and took off.
Mm-hmm.
And I made it to some of my friends' houses because she didn't know all my friends. And I made it, and she had the cops looking for me. They came to some of my friends' houses. And I finally, it was probably a couple days. And then I finally went back to school and I went to the counselor and I said, I will not go back there. I'm not going back there. You're not going to make me. I'm not doing it. So she ended up letting me go to her house.
The counselor.
Yeah.
Great.
The school counselor. Oh, no, not great.
No, it was bad. Okay. Here
Oh,
I
it gets even
am
better.
hoping that we
Gets
have
even better.
Okay.
It's even better.
Megan.
So-
Oh, good.
No.
It's not funny. It's really not. But
I
it,
know. This
You
is
got your
kind
wine handy?
yeah.
I'm going to be.
Let's all take a collective drink right about now.
Okay.
Just to tell you the story.
So I go to her house and I'm thinking, cool. I feel like I'm loved right now. I feel safe. So I'm in the attic. They have a bed up there, whatever. So I'm there overnight. I get up in the morning and I have to use the bathroom. So I go down to the door and it's fucking locked.
What?
And I'm like, yeah, it's locked.
Oh,
And I'm like
gosh.
trying to open this door and I'm like, what the hell?
She
So
locked
it's,
you?
I don't even know how much. Yeah, she locked me in.
Like locked her in the attic like this bad seed or something.
Oh my Lord, Cinderella.
Yeah,
What?
like I'm going to kill them all in their sleep or something.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I'm now remembering this from the book. I had forgot that she had locked it.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, oh my God, I was like, what in the hell? Ugh. So she finally opens the door and I'm like, why'd you lock me in? She's like, I didn't. I go, yes, you did. I couldn't get out. So I'm like, okay. So then here's another counselor that I have no faith in now.
Well, of course.
So this psycho's trying to tell you that she didn't have you locked up there?
Yeah. She tried to tell me she didn't have me locked up there. I'm like, I'm not dumb. I know when I can't open a door.
Right. Right.
Ugh. So, but so then there was that. And then one of my friends in choir, her mom took in girls. She wasn't an actual foster home, but she took in girls. So long story short, I ended up moving in with her. My grandfather said it was okay. And I was with her until I was 16.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then I moved out to a friend's house, stayed with her probably about a year. And then I moved in with my boyfriend and his dad. And then I moved in with his mom and her boyfriend. And then I got my own place.
What was the boyfriend's name?
His name was Dave at the time. I was with him for 3 years.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yep. And then that's when I bought my own trailer.
Okay. And
Pretty self-sufficient at that point, right?
Yes. Once I've got my own trailer, I was like, oh my God, it's my very own place.
yes.
I don't have to rely on anybody.
Mhm.
I felt like I'd accomplished something.
Yes. And just knowing that you have that stability, because something that people maybe don't realize about children is that they need to know what's going to happen next. Like be able to just know. That's why routines are so important for children.
Yeah.
And so really not knowing, where you're going to be next or staying next, that creates a lot of trauma, a lot of anxiety. And so I can imagine for you just knowing I have purchased this place. This is mine. No one can take this from me. I know just bringing that whole new sense of stability that you probably hadn't, and comfort and security that you hadn't felt since you were 9 years old.
Yeah, exactly.
So you, at this point, when do you meet Tyson?
Well, I met him actually when I was 16.
Oh, okay, so you guys have been friends a long time.
Yeah. Well, Dave's sister, this is the funny part. Dave's sister was married to Tom, and Ty was Tom's friend.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So Ty actually saw me and was like, told Tom, I don't know if he was joking or whatever. He's like, I'm going to marry her one day.
Who's that hottie?
No, that's not a joke. You just know. You just know.
Yep.
Yeah. So he said that to him. He's 5 years older than me. So, at that time he's 21 or 20. I suck with math. 20?
Right.
I do too.
Okay,
That's why I went into social work.
17.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So, and he said to him, I'm going to marry her one day. But we met back up because I had I get along better with guys.
Me too.
I don't like the drama.
Yep.
But so I was 18 and we went to a party and I walked up and there was Tyson. And he's like, Jessi? I was like, Tyson? And literally from that day on, we never separated.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Beautiful.
And you have 2 children together, correct?
Yep.
Boy, girl, 2 girls, 2 boys.
Boy and a girl,
Okay.
Dakota and Austin.
All right. So here's the part, Jessi, where I'm going to ask you, at what point in time then, as an adult, do you realize that you have all of this unresolved trauma?
Okay. So, I obviously knew I had issues because I had been cutting when I was younger. I did get over that for a while. But I would have episodes where I couldn't remember stuff. I'd wake up at work and I'd be like, how the hell did I get here?
Yep.
So you're having short-term memory loss. You're blocking things. Your brain is protecting you.
Well, the thing is, I didn't realize I had DID back then.
Yeah. Which for people who don't know, that's dissociative identity disorder.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah. So I didn't realize I had it. Yep. And I wake up at work and they're like, well, we can't get you. I'm like, what? Okay. It was just bizarre.
Yeah.
And but I have OCD really bad, anxiety, depression. But I just kind of thought I was just weird. I didn't realize it was a thing.
Or that it was connected to the trauma that you experienced in childhood.
Yeah. I had no clue.
Sure.
So when, you might as well call her my niece. It was Dave's niece. But I still keep in contact with that whole family.
Okay.
So Lexi, she had cystic fibrosis. She was 23. She had passed away on October 28th.
Oh.
Well, when that happened, it was a whole week I don't remember.
Oh, wow.
A whole week. I went to work. I don't remember any of it. Snippets. I'll remember snippets. It's almost like I was over my body, watching myself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Super weird.
Yep. Your soul was literally vacating your actual human body for protection. Mm-hmm. That happens. That happens.
Yeah. So, and then my poor husband had to deal with Jessica.
Sure.
And she was not happy. So yeah, well, long story short, I ended up having to admit myself because when I would come to, I mean, I had cuts all over my body. I'd wake up to pictures on my phone. I'm like, what in the fuck is happening? Like, it scared me.
And like notes, that like journal notes and stuff, she would write that she literally was like reading someone else had written it. It wasn't her. How it felt.
Yeah,
to her.
that's what a terrifying loss of control.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was terrifying.
And at this point in time, you guys had been working on the book by this point, right? Yep. So you have those triggers. We have triggers coming up too, just from, going
talking
through
about it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, maybe we should interrupt now then, kind of, if I could real quick. Jamie, at what point did you find Jessi to start working on this book then, since we're right in that time frame of her life?
Yeah, so it was, I believe, in 2014, and like we said earlier, we have a really big family, so I'm connected to like a lot of them on Facebook, and you know how it pops up like someone you may know or whatever. It was like one day I saw
and usually
her
you don't want
up.
to know those people, so you keep moving.
But this one I see like it's Jessi, but she's got this hot pink hair, and I'm like, holy shit, like it's Jessi, like, because we had lost touch since my high school graduation, so from 17 to however old I would have been, quite a lot later. And I sent the friend request and we kind of connected, but it's the whole weird thing of like, I know what's happened to you and you know what's happened to you, but are we supposed to or allowed to talk about that?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Especially
should I mention it? Should I not? It's like this super awkward, like, societal dance we do with this kind of thing. And so at some point, like, I had realized that this bullshit book was out about the murders. And so I had gotten my hands on that and started reading it after we had connected. And for me, it was like, it was interesting. I call it the bullshit book for a reason, but it was like,
we're not even going to tell anybody what the bullshit book is called because of the inaccuracies.
No, but I do
really
have
not that great.
I do have a story, a quick anecdote to that. Somebody wrote us and was like, oh, if you want more details, after we covered it on the Patreon, if you want more details, there's this great book. And I was like, yeah, well, we're going to have Jessi and Jamie on the podcast ourselves. We'll get the details then. Thank you.
That's the problem, though, with some of these and why we have people like you guys come on, because anybody can write a book about anything. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that if someone were to read that book, they'd be like, oh, look at this. It's very interesting. This person covers all of this great information, but without ever getting any of the information from you.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing that can happen is if someone does a deep dive, say podcast on it, and they tell you they're sharing all the evidence, but they actually don't, you don't know that they aren't.
Correct.
They tell you that they are.
Right.
So it's like we've ran into that as well.
Oh, I bet.
So how did you broach the topic then with your cousin there, Jamie?
So,
like, let's write a book.
So I read this bullshit book and it takes everything I have, but it is interesting on some level for me and like really pissed me off on other levels. And so I finish it and I'm just like totally feeling unsettled and kind of pissed and just like, it's not for me. It's like pissed for Jessi, if that makes sense. Cause I'm just like, it's like basically she's just some side character that this didn't even really that much happen to. And she just talked about like, she's either just too young to know anything or a total fool. And so
oh my God,
it was just like, how are you like sidetracking this like major, like she's the youngest that this happens to, and she's lived her entire life dealing with the aftermath of this. So how is she not like even
she's
like
the
a part of this
survivor,
or really
for crying out loud?
Yeah. And so I'm like pissed on behalf of her, like just so pissed. And so one night I just decided I'm going to email her. Like, fuck it. Like, what's the worst that could happen really? Like I have to tell her that like I read this bullshit book, that, I remember what happened. I remember being at the funeral. Like, I'm so sorry about everything. And I don't know if that makes you uncomfortable or whatever, but I like lay out my heart to her basically. And, she really received it well. Like she had been waiting for someone to come back for her, like all these years of her life, like waiting for someone to like
acknowledge,
care about her and come back for her and acknowledge her existence. Yeah. Who she actually is.
Yeah.
Jamie.
Not actually see you for who you actually are.
Yes.
So Jessi, how did that feel that she reached out?
Oh my God. I actually cried. I was like, oh my God, she actually wants to know me. She actually wants to get to know me better and wants a relationship with me. Like it felt good. I was surprised. So when she sent that to me, I was like, hell yeah. You know? So no, it was really good. Like she said, she poured her heart and soul out to me, and it was amazing. I was like, you have no idea. No, this is good.
So
yeah,
you felt
we can talk about this.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was like, I want to know you. And her response was like, kind of like, I want to know you too. And so then it's like, we started talking on the phone and messaging and
Like
watching shows together.
Yeah. The real you, everything about you, the good, the bad, the ugly. We don't have to keep this crap in the closet anymore.
Yes.
And
yeah,
if there is one message that can come from this, at least from my point of view, to any of our listeners, it's that if you have someone in your life who has experienced significant trauma, especially in childhood, or a loss, like a huge loss, please don't pretend like that never happened to them or like those people never existed.
Nope.
We really highlighted that with our Patreons in talking about how unfair it is to do that to people. And I had several people email us and say, thank you for saying that, because they've experienced huge loss and family members who just pretend like they never existed and we're not allowed to talk about their memories.
Right.
And
right.
And all the only words they need are, if you ever want to talk about it, I'm here. That's it. That's all they have to say. Like, if you ever want to. So it's not saying you have to. I'm trying to get you. I'm asking you questions. It's just like, hey, I'm here.
And somehow opening that door, if you want to talk about it, turned into you, Jessi, feeling comfortable enough to tell Jamie your entire story and document it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's this crazy thing, because it's not like, oh, Jamie's an author and she'll write your book. Like, I wasn't one. No, I didn't know if I could write a freaking book. Like, so at some point, this organically is like, have you ever thought about telling your story? Because that bullshit book just shouldn't be the only thing that stands as the record for your family and you. And she's like, well, I've thought about it. And so it becomes like verbally like, yeah, we should totally do it. And I'm like, I'll try, we can try to do it. And then I'm like, we get off the phone and my total reaction behind that is like, holy shit. Like, I don't even know if I can write a book. Like, I'm telling her that I'll do it, and I don't even know if I can. So I like freak out and message her back, and I'm like, hey, let me just try to write one chapter, and we'll see if I think I can do it. I'll have to try or something like that.
If I know how to write, can I do this?
Right.
Yeah. And it turns out you found a beautiful calling, Jamie.
Right.
Well, what she had actually said was, have you ever thought about writing your story? And I said, well, people have mentioned it and I thought about it, but I don't know if I could ever tell anybody. And she said, well, do you think you could tell me? And I was like, yeah, I think I could. And that's actually what started it. And then that's when she said, well, let me write a chapter and see if I can even do this.
Yeah. So like, this is like on a Sunday, and like on Monday at lunch at the law firm, I'm like, holy shit, I'm going to try to write a chapter of a book now. And it's like, that's how it happened. And I was like, this shit is good. Like, I can do it.
Good.
Yeah. When she sent me that, I was like, oh my fucking God, you are amazing. Wow.
And you felt comfortable then. Here we go.
Yes, I did.
She's going to put this down how I feel. And that's how we feel reading the book, just so you know. I very rarely do you read a book that is written by somebody else that expresses exactly how you were feeling so well, which is why we love Jamie as an author, because that's a natural talent. I did writing stuff in college. I have an English minor and I write, and I'm a lawyer, so I did a lot of writing. But to be able to portray that, how you, the human you, it was done well.
Yes, it was.
Jessi, you are explaining to us, or we're explaining to us, that you're going through these moments where you're disassociating then. And is this actively during the sharing of information for the book being written?
Yeah, it did bring up some stuff. Jessica does come out. She doesn't come out quite often. Actually, she just came out last week, unfortunately. Yeah.
Well,
so
the time of year, it's close to the time of year that you lost your niece, too.
Yeah. Actually, that is exactly what happened. Jessica was not nice to me. Ended up having stitches. It was actually really scary. It does scare me. Like, people don't understand the ID. Even the ER, like, they don't understand.
Oh, I can imagine.
I'm like, it wasn't me.
Right.
Me as Jessi, Like, I'm the altar. That's what people don't understand. I am the altar.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I became Jessi at 13.
Okay.
To survive.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, to
Absolutely.
survive. So Jessi, I'm the happy one. I'm the never sad, never mad, just happy-go-lucky, like always bubbly. And, you know, I've always had people say, how are you so happy all the time? I'm like, I don't know, I just am. But it was to protect myself.
That was the first time really probably that you had disassociated.
Yeah.
Then.
Yeah.
When did you get the,
Yep.
I don't know if you would call it relief, but I would, the relief of a diagnosis, so that you were finally like, oh, well, that's what the fuck is happening.
Yeah.
Jessica
It was
is
when
here
we were
and
working
Jessi's
on the book.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
Okay.
crazy because it was like unfolding in live time. It's like we're unpacking
Yeah.
the past and this trauma. And then she ends up in the hospital, and it's the scariest thing ever. Because at that point, I'm like, fuck the book. I don't even care about the book. Like, I
Right.
need you to be okay.
Right.
We can stop if we need to. Like, it was just that we would take time and persevere through it. But she was diagnosed as we were live working on this book,
Yeah.
which was crazy because it was just so eye-opening for both of us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But,
I want to
wow.
say it was 2018, maybe
Probably.
2017, 2018, somewhere in there. So I mean, I was in my 30s, late 30s.
Yeah. And is
So
it,
that's a
is
long
it fair
time.
to say that it has helped you to be able to have the diagnosis and have a conscious understanding of what the hell is going on, you know, with your
Yeah.
body when these things happen? And I find it beautiful that one thing led to another, and that's not coincidence. That's such a,
Yeah.
you know, divine intervention of what was needed to help you.
Yes, I really do. Because I think without the diagnoses, I think I'd be dead already,
Sure.
honestly.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I think me understanding that Jessica does come through, and she's 9, 10, you know, and that mind, they don't understand consequence.
Mm-mm. No. Right. Right.
So
Not at
what
all.
she does to me, she doesn't understand it's going to kill me,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and that's
Yep.
the scary part. Like, and I have no control.
She's acting her
Like,
anger
when I-
out. It sounds like.
Yeah.
It's like
Mhm.
I'm hurting and I don't want to hurt anymore.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when I come to these things, I freak out because I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Why do I have this cut? Why,
Sure.
you know? And people don't understand that. And they're like, why are you cutting? That's not me.
Right. Right. I
I
wasn't.
quit doing that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, I quit doing that personally when I was probably 14, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, but Jessica, she's still stuck in that mode.
Right. Yes. She's forever stuck in that time and space. I mean, truly.
Yeah.
When the
Yeah.
reason that it's called dissociative identity disorder, way back in the day, they used to call it multiple personality, but we have evolved since then and understand the brain a lot more since then. And truly, I just want the audience to know the reason it's called dissociative is because you disassociate fully, entirely, mind and body. There is a complete disconnection there. And so whatever trauma is coming up, you know, for you, it's Jessica, comes through and acts out whatever it is that she wants to at that time. That's not Jessi. You know,
No.
that is truly just a way of your brain coping with everything that it has been through. And I love that you highlight that people don't understand. They think it's you because you have this one body. Yep, you sure do.
Right.
But guess what? Your brain is an amazing thing that keeps your body alive, and it literally can disassociate.
It creates havoc.
And has a whole nother personality in there. Sometimes more than, is it just Jessica and Jessi then for you, for your did? Okay.
Yep. Thank God.
Yeah,
Right, right.
absolutely. But just think about, even if you don't have a DID diagnosis, how many times do we let our brains take us on negative thinking or just lead us to a place of depression? Seasonally, this time of year too, we let our brains do things like that all the time. So people who don't understand how something as serious as DID could occur from your situations, why wouldn't it? I mean, we do things all the time to leave our own heads, right?
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Well, and I think it's age 10. Like your brain is not even prepared to deal
No.
with trauma before the age of 10. So it's like it can't even. So it's like it does what it can best to help.
It survived.
Right.
First of all, it's not even fully developed until you're 25. And sometimes I
Right.
think
Men,
I was just
50.
going to say, and for men, I think
50.
my husband's is still evolving.
Yeah, he
So-
is still evolving. From his post
Work in
from last
progress.
week, he's clearly still evolving.
Right.
It sounds positive though when you say it
Right,
that way.
absolutely. But we say it with love.
Moving in the
So
right direction.
you can say a lot of things with love.
That's right.
Jamie, I want to go. I mean, we're talking so much about how things are moving along then in Jessi's journey, but I have to make sure that everybody understands at some point there is an arrest made in this case.
Yes.
There is. So the murders happened in 1989, and then Jeff was arrested in 2002. He's 31 years old, and he is working at IBM. He's getting off of a business flight when he is taken into custody.
So
Wow.
Jeff has gone on to live this normal life. He is living in Florida still, or he's moved back to Florida?
Yep.
I think he and his wife had gotten divorced and then remarried or something, but I think they were married at that time. And yeah,
So he's
And
gone on
there was-
and had a family.
correct.
Yep. We had a son.
And why did it, from your guys' perspectives, why did it take so long for there to be criminal charges?
Well, if you just having reviewed everything, obviously, I think it's all up to the prosecutor, right? It's like, are they going to bring it or not? Is there
Yes.
enough or not? Do they want the murder weapon or not? And at that time, like around the murders, they really wanted the murder weapon and they didn't have it. And so they
Mhm.
weren't going to bring charges.
I agree. That's really
but a
how
new
I felt too.
prosecutor, yeah, a new prosecutor stepped in at some point, and basically he made this his priority case, like the cold case of Pelley became priority. And they had a whole team working on it. And basically, I think them just reviewing everything that had been done and looking at all the evidence that was there, they just felt strongly that they could get a conviction based on it without the murder weapon. So that's what they did.
I 100% agree with that impression. I was a prosecutor, and I know that some prosecutors, everybody's different, right? So some prosecutors are going to look at something and say, if I can't prove this beyond a reasonable doubt, I'm not even going to charge. I was not that type of prosecutor. I usually erred on the side of charging because you only need probable cause to do that. And then piecing my case together. And there was so much circumstantial evidence that was so beautiful in this case. And I know that's an awful word, but for a prosecutor, it's beautiful because I looked at every single piece of the evidence that you presented in the book and went, dude, I would take this case in a hot second.
Yeah.
I would have zero problems trying that case. It'd be a slam dunk depending on the right person.
Circumstantially, Jeff had put himself right in the center of a dartboard, right? And
Yeah.
it's
He
like,
did.
that's what kills me is they act like for them to have the balls to bring this that many years later when he's a professional with a wife and a son and like all of this, like they knew that they had enough because they felt that they had enough the whole time. It just wasn't brought earlier.
And
all
they,
that it was.
from
It's scary though.
I was reading it from an investigator perspective going, oh my gosh, you have everything that you need. Just move on this. Why did this take so long? I mean, truly.
We have survivors all the time who we interview who it's terrifying to know that an individual who was that unhinged and unsafe was in society for that long.
Right.
A man that is crazy enough, and I don't mean crazy like mentally, I mean crazy criminally, to kill his own father and then, his stepmother and young children is the person who is capable of anything.
Absolutely anything, especially the way that it went, that it went down. Like that takes a whole extra level of maliciousness to do it in the way that he did it.
Yep.
Well, and that's the thing is it's like if sometimes you'll hear things like, well, if you believe that he didn't do it, like, oh, he's never done any other thing or he just had minor trouble before, like after the murders, he had lied about having cancer and it was this huge like scam scheme where he lied about having cancer to get to his money, his trust money earlier. And it was to the point where they got him for like wire fraud and all of this stuff. So it's like someone who's so innocent would never do anything like this doesn't do that either. So it's like, and then there's other stuff. So it's like you just start to put the pieces together and you're like, center of the dartboard for real for a reason.
Well, and truly, okay, he may have never went and point blank murdered somebody else again, right? Okay. But he still had malicious behaviors that he continued to do. And I suspect that there's probably even a whole shit ton of things that we don't know that he did
I think
as
there's
well.
at least one other thing floating out there, according to some of the detectives.
Yeah.
Just something that hasn't been charged because he's currently incarcerated.
It was more of like a civil thing, but it was something equally as bad where you're basically still a total liar and you're trying to get out of trouble kind of thing, and someone did die.
Yep.
So.
Oh, okay.
Before he was charged, Jessi, had you continued to have any type of a relationship with Jeff or with Jackie?
Okay. So Jackie, I did until I saw her for a movie. We saw Ghostbusters. She came up to Eaton Rapids, where I was living with my grandfather. And then we just talked on the phone after that. But once this case came up and he was going on trial, we chatted, and she's like, he didn't do it. And I was like, well, he did.
Right.
And we argued, and I was like, you know what? Okay, let's just agree to disagree, because I think he did it. You think he didn't. And it's going to go nowhere. So we actually quit talking after that. I have heard from her a few times, but it's been like around trial time. It's been around like when the book came out. So it's been like key point times that she's contacted me, but
do you know
not
what
really
purpose?
relationship wise.
Do you know why she reached out during those times? Did you ever have a conversation, or is it just more a matter of, hey, you're in the limelight again, so I'm going to call?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much what it was. So, but Jeff, I saw him one time in between, and actually this was kind of scary. I was 15. I was staying at my foster mom's house, and she actually had her own stuff going on. So I needed somewhere to go. He called. I don't know how he knew where I was, but he found me. Called and asked if I wanted to come to Florida to see him and Kim. And I was like, well, shit, I have nowhere to go. So yeah.
Sure.
I mean, I was scared, but because I remembered how he treated me. But I was like, okay, he's older, maybe. And I didn't realize all this other stuff, mind you.
Of course. Yeah. Keep that in mind. You still think at this time that Bob is the one that took your family. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay. So he flies me down there. We get to his house. I'm starting to unpack, and he's like, hey, who do you think killed everybody? And I was like, your dad? He's like, oh, okay.
Ugh.
Oh, damn. Oh, my God. To think of what if you had said, well, actually, I'm not sure who, or because I'm sure even if you did suspect him at that time, I'm sure you probably wouldn't have said that possibly to his face. But I mean, if you hadn't given that right answer that he was looking for, what the hell was his purpose of having you there? That's terrifying.
Yeah, it's very terrifying. Like, we went out on jet skis on the ocean, and he still was up to his same old fucking tricks. Like, he knocked me off of it, and I love horror movies, and I love like Jaws, but I am scared of being in the ocean, not on something. So when he knocked me off, I was freaked out, and he's laughing, and I'm like, you fucking asshole.
Yeah,
he likes being cruel to you. He didn't outgrow it.
No, and this is the maliciousness that I'm talking about. Like, he is a malicious person at the end of it all. At the, what I mean? Like, at the soul level. So I don't want to hear the arguments of, oh, he lived all those years without murdering somebody else. But that doesn't mean he didn't harm other people, right? Like, like he's, that aggravates me. Oh.
Yeah, like, Who does that?
Also, you're like guardian angel, guides, whatever you want to call them. Jesus, girl, working overtime on you.
Yes, I agree. They are definitely working overtime.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, she's got like a whole spiritual army up there. So
Yes, that's
Yes,
for
I
sure.
do.
That's for sure.
So,
I
Jamie,
can feel them.
He finally gets charged then, and how long is the trial set out from when he's originally charged?
So he's arrested in August, looks like August 10th, and so that's 2002, and he doesn't go to trial until 4 years later. So Jessi is 27, I believe, at that time.
Is he
so this was
incarcerated?
17 years after the murders. He was, I believe, in jail up until that time.
Okay. Some people post bond. I just wondered if they had allowed him to be released. So he was incarcerated during that 4 years.
There were a lot of legal battles about speedy trial, time clock issues, and a bunch of other things, and them arguing over their counseling records, and just it was definitely a very paper heavy fighting kind of case.
And not to give things away, but let's just be clear. He was convicted by the trial court. A jury found him guilty of multiple counts of first-degree murder, correct?
Correct.
And then there were appeals.
Correct.
And the appeals were based off of things like you just mentioned, like that he didn't have a speedy trial, that there was 4 years that had gone by and such.
Mm-hmm.
And then my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that ultimately, so it was remanded at some point in time. There was concern that the case was going to have to be retried. Like, I think I recall reading in the book that there was panic, right? Oh my God, we're going to have to do this again.
Yeah.
But
so
then,
at the basic court of appeals level, yes. And then at the Indiana Supreme Court level, he lost.
Correct.
So.
And my understanding was it was his own counsel that was creating most of the delays.
Correct, because they're fighting about counseling records and keeping them out. So he's arguing like it's not going fast enough, but also they're the ones delaying it. So.
All right.
Were those counseling records ever allowed in? They weren't, right?
They weren't. There was an in-camera review by the judge as to what they were. And I don't think it was found that they were particularly helpful, but they were never in.
Okay. I just wonder what was in that nugget. Of course, it would also depend on how effective the actual counselor was at getting information out too. So,
you had to testify at the trial itself, correct?
Yes, I did.
Do you remember it at all?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And I know this is a shitty question, but what was that like for you? I have victims on the stand all the time, so I have a general idea, but I just want your impression.
Yeah. I actually was very nervous because I hadn't seen him, since I was 15. So,
sure.
Yeah, I was.
And you're now
very nerve-wracking.
You're 27, right? I mean, so think about that, just 15 to 27.
Yeah,
a
lot of years.
Yeah.
I have children at this time.
Right.
He has a child.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I testified. Just to see him, I was like terrified, and angry, and just, it's almost surreal,
Mm-hmm.
Like, am I really here doing this? But yeah, so I testified. When I gave my victim impact statement, that motherfucker never looked at me once.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
Just so our listeners know, let me interrupt really quick. The victim's impact statement would have been at sentencing, you giving your statement to the judge about him and about the situation, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
So...
And I literally stared at him, and he didn't look at me one time. Not one time.
Cowards
and
never
so that... And yeah, and that's my thing. If you're innocent, you're going to look at me.
Yep.
And be like, I didn't do it.
Right.
Absolutely.
At least that's what I would do.
Yep. Like, you've got this so wrong. Yeah. Because that's the thing, what they say about our eyes being the windows of our souls. Our eyes tell everything. They really do, especially if you're effective at reading people and those nonverbal communications. And so we have this instinct. It's something, one of the first things that I learned when I was in training to become an investigator is to look at eyes and watch the movement of eyes. Watch for the willingness to make direct eye contact or not. And so that speaks volumes just to me, with things that I know, because he knew the truth if he did have the courage to look at you. He knew his eyes were telling the story anyway. You would have absolutely known. But by him not doing it, he's telling on himself too.
Were you there when the judge read the sentence?
No, I was actually at a restaurant a couple blocks away.
Okay. So you had given your statement and then you went off.
Yes. Yep.
He did receive life without the possibility of parole. Again, this is prior to the appeals, but originally he received life without. Okay. And how can I ask how you felt about that?
160 years. It was 40 per life.
Yes.
Yep.
That's right. 40 per life running consecutively.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Beautiful.
Yep.
And that was ultimately upheld by the Supreme Court, correct, Jamie? They didn't make them change the sentence at all.
It was. And just, I mean, for the people listening, it's like, imagine that he finally goes to trial. You're 27. It's finally supposedly resolved. You're happy he's going to be where he's supposed to be. And then at the first appellate level, when they thought, oh, he might be able to get out, how terrifying that was for her.
And I was 28 when that happened.
Right. Yeah. I'm glad that you pointed that out because I think that that's a part that a lot of times gets lost in stories like this in terms of the impact. We do try to highlight it a lot on our podcast, but the impact that both parole hearings and appeals have on the surviving family. Because it's just so scary to think of like that person being free again.
Yeah. Well, and it's the most annoying thing when you're like left with all of this to deal with. And then it's like people are trying to crawl out on technicalities and things. It's not a very nice feeling.
Absolutely.
And so it's something that to this day, she still continues to deal with because he has bullshit pending currently again for post-conviction relief, which should be ruled on literally any day. So it's it's always looming, always for the rest of his life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's in the Indiana Department of Corrections, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
He's actually in Michigan.
Is he?
Is he now?
Yeah, he's in Michigan, Lower Michigan.
Okay. Did they transfer
I know they move
him?
him down here when there's hearings. Yeah.
Yeah, he's probably in Jackson.
Yeah, I do believe so.
Yeah, you say Lower Michigan, and I know of 2 prisons in Lower Michigan, and Jackson's the most secure. There's Coldwater, which is literally 15 minutes from us, but that's not as secure of a facility.
Yeah, no. Yeah, he's probably in Jackson, but yeah, I know he's in Michigan. So,
okay.
Because I personally know one of the detectives, and he actually brought him there. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, Jessi, you became a mom then.
Yep.
And having gone through the things that you went through, how did that affect your child rearing? How did that affect your relationships with your own kids?
That's a great question.
Yeah, actually, I made sure my children were very independent. And
that makes sense.
I mean, it's like a bittersweet thing because my daughter is very independent. Like, it's just
like
weird.
She had applied to college without you ever even knowing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Like, I was like, what? And she's like, Mom, I got this. And I'm like, oh my God, but I'm your mom. I'm supposed to help.
Right.
But I made it to where if I ever got killed or was in an accident, like my kids were going to survive. They would never, ever, ever go through what I went through. Ever.
That makes total sense because you were just so uprooted and had to depend on other people and
bounced around.
Yes.
You know, I didn't want that for my children. I made sure that they could depend on themselves. And, you know, and was that hard on them? It could have been. But, you know, I just wanted to make sure that they could live their own lives without somebody.
Right. But you were still there to support them along the way while teaching them their independence. Megan and I very much have a same parenting style. Our kids are, and it is, I love how you said it's bittersweet because there's those moments of like, damn, I did too good of a job. And it's like, you don't even need me. Yeah. And the fact of the matter is they're just so secure that they know when I do need you, you'll be there. So I'm going to come to you when I need you.
Well, and just an observation, just from reading and you know this now, Jessi, but you needed your family. They were taken from you. You needed them the whole time you were going through everything independently. You've just been able to make your family stronger because of it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, they did have to grow up with my OCD and, you know, all the craziness. Like, you know, they saw all the stuff that I went through. So I wish that they didn't have to see that because I didn't have therapy at that time. But, when I finally did tell them what happened, they kind of understood why I was the way I was,
Yeah, probably clicked into place for them at that point in time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Their mom just wasn't crazy. There was a reason for it,
Right.
All moms are a little crazy anyway. Yep. This was a diagnosis, so it wasn't your fault.
Yeah, and it's another interesting thing too, because I think even at the time we were writing Jessi's book, it's like she had still not really told her kids, like her son especially. And she was like, it's the anniversary. The shows are going to air again. I really need to tell him this year because he might see it on a show. It became like a thing where she has to like worry about him seeing it on a show instead of from her.
Oh God. Yeah. Good point. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Like I told my daughter first, but she was more mature and, could kind of accept it a little better.
Sure.
But
there's some beauty in having this beautifully written book that when somebody asks, why are you the way that you are, Jessi, you go, here, read this.
Read all about it.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Or I have people read it and then come up to me and like, can I hug you? I'm like, let me guess. You either saw the show or read the book.
Right. So tell me about, tell me about the show.
Okay, well, there's a couple of them out there. So
are there?
Okay. Ones that you would recommend that you think are accurate enough for listeners to actually spend their time on from your perspective.
Okay, so Evil Lives Here is one of them. Okay. That's a really good one. 48 Hours Live to Tell. That's a good one. We did do Dr. Oz. That was pretty good. That was actually our first one.
Was he a nice man?
He actually was. He really was.
He seems kind. He has kind eyes.
He does have kind eyes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he actually talked to me afterwards and was like, I'm really sorry, and actually talked to me. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. But yeah, Evil Lives Here, 48 Hours Live to Tell. Those are two of the really good ones.
And then as we're kind of summing up then, let me start with you, Jamie. If there was anything else that we haven't covered today, and there's so much more in the book. I mean, there's so much things involving friendships and rekindling things. Is there anything else that you would want listeners to know about Jessi?
She is just the most vibrant, vivacious, like amazing person. And it's like she said, you would never know that she had been through anything if you just met her, working with her or around her today. And I think that's true for a lot of people because it's a lot easier for them to try to move forward in positivity and in a way that they can have a happy life. Mm-hmm. And the second thing we kind of touched on earlier, but just that if someone in your family or a friend or someone you know has been through something just terrible or very dramatic or tragic, that person knows it happened. And maybe they want to talk about it or maybe they don't, but it's okay to just throw the lifeline out there and be like, hey, if you ever want to, I'm here. That's all you have to say. And I had people reach out to us after the book came out and they would be like, I always run into this lady at the grocery store and her young son just died like a year before, but I wasn't sure if I should say anything or not. And it's like the book seems to have really helped some people to kind of sort that piece out. And I'm really freaking proud of that it actually is putting like light into the world and like helping people through what she's been through. And I think that this is, I don't want to say the why it happened because it never should have, but this is the light in what she has chosen to do with what she was given.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I love that advice about just throwing that lifeline out there and even just allowing them to share if they want to just talk about their memories, what they remember of their loved ones. A lot of times that helps keep that energy of them and spirit of them with you and alive. And
I guess, Jessi, my last question to you would be, assume out here somewhere, and we know it's true, there's been a little girl who's been through a situation similar to you. What would you tell the people who are taking care of her after?
I would tell them to let her express herself. Hug her often. That I can't express. I can't express that enough. Hug her, love her.
Physical connection.
I didn't get that. I did not get that, and that's what I craved the most. Hugging. Let her talk about it. Don't tell her to be quiet. Don't tell her to move on. because guess what? She can't move on until she talks about it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You know?
Yep.
Do you think that people should have been more honest with you about what happened at an age-appropriate level?
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe not go into detail, but at least say, hey, this is what happened. You know, like you said, age appropriate, but at least explain a little bit further what happened, you know?
Yes. Yeah, most definitely. Well, and
But
because then you wouldn't have been left to piece, because no matter what people need to understand, kids are going to try to make logical sense of things and piece things together, whether you like it or not. So you might as well be as honest with them as you can that is appropriate so that they're not left doing that.
Yes, because then they can get it wrong. And then they're growing up thinking this one thing and then boom, oh, guess what? Completely different scenario, you know?
Absolutely. Well,
and that's not healthy.
And correct, because I'd actually like to ask you a question. You know, thinking all of these years that your mom's spouse had committed such an act of violence against her and your siblings, did that affect how you interacted with partners of your own?
Not really. I craved love so bad that.
Okay. Yeah.
I just, you know, okay. So I craved love so bad that I was in relationships, but when they were abusive, I did cut ties.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I did not deal with that shit because of all of that.
Sure.
So that was a good thing. But yeah, and that's why I'm in like long-term relationships. Like my husband and I, we have been through some shit. Let me tell you.
Sure.
But, you know, and people call me stupid. You're stupid. And I said, you know what? I love him and I'm sorry, but I'm going to go through this. And I'm not perfect by any means. I did stuff too, you know, but for me, if you love someone, you're going to endure the good and the bad,
Definitely.
you know? So I think because of everything that I went through, I have more patience. I have more love to give. You know, if that makes sense.
It does.
It does.
Just because I didn't have it.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, it also didn't surprise me at all that you went into a career working with children because your childhood was stolen from you. And so you got to, you know, connect with them and see that the things that, you know, you didn't necessarily get to have and experience through them. And they're just so much. I love their honesty. When I go and do my inspections, I love listening to children's blatant honesty and how they just cut through the bullshit, right? Like it's just so lovely.
The only people more honest are children and old people.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That's right. The rest of us have to
that was my favorite part about working in childcare. And actually, it's funny because a lot of the teachers, and I'm not talking bad about them in any means, you know, but the troubled children, I was drawn to.
Sure. Yeah.
And actually, I got through to them. I mean, I have had chairs thrown at me. I have had, you name it. I actually broke my foot a few times, and I actually just got out of my boot, and a little girl was so pissed at me, and she kicked me and broke it again.
Oh God.
And you know what I did? I hugged her. And I was like, I love you. I know you're angry, but we can't do this.
Right.
You know,
you
we have to do something else.
Yeah.
Yes. And the parents were mortified. They're like, oh my God. I go, no.
Yeah.
As long as she learns from this, I'm good.
Right.
I'm not mad at her, you know? And that's the thing. I have the patience to deal with that because I was that little girl.
Absolutely.
That resonates with me too, Jessi, just because I loved working with my juvenile delinquents because every single one of them, maybe two as an exception, that were actually criminals as juveniles, they had a reason to be acting the way that they were. Not one of them had, like, they were through the delinquency system because of some type of childhood trauma or inappropriateness that they had experienced and then acted out on. And some of them were terrible, awful little shit sitting in front of you, just swearing and constantly running away. And just, any of those sound familiar, right? But those are the kids that I like to deal with because they were super freaking honest about it.
Yeah.
They had a reason for what they were doing.
Jessi, I wish we had more childcare providers like you because now in my job, my new role, I get to read and approve all of the investigations. And I got to tell you, I get really, really concerned when I'm reading an investigation and the child care provider is blaming the child for the child's behavior, right? And well, I did this because this child always acts out X, Y, and Z, or this child's a runner, so this is why I did that. I always kick those back and say, we are sorry, we're violating them for inappropriate discipline or inappropriate supervision, whatever it may be, because we know there's a reason why we're talking young kids, y'all, like child care usually
3 years
ends.
old, 4 years old.
Yes, exactly. A majority of the age group of children in child care are infants to about 6, 7. Okay.
Yes.
And so there are a couple that go all the way till 10 or 12, but that's pretty rare. And so, like, no. We are not blaming this 5-year-old.
No.
Okay.
No.
So I just want you to know that I appreciated that perspective of you saying, I understood there was a reason they were doing that. And it is a shame to me that we've lost you in the state of Michigan as a child care provider, because
I know. I know. I just love it.
You do what's best for you. Ladies, I am so excited that you were able to join us to tell us a little bit about your story and such. And I will also tell you that usually at this point in an interview, we say our goodbyes, and then Charnell and I do this lovely little brain bath for our listeners to cleanse their palates from all the trauma that we've put them through. But because you seem like you're one of us, do you want to stick around so I can bathe you with a funny story?
Yeah, sure.
All right. So a listener and Patreon messages, the stories I could tell you. Okay. So my all-time favorite story as an ER trauma nurse goes like this.
Oh, God.
10:36. I know. 10:36 p.m. during college hazing week around 1984.
Oh, God. This just keeps getting better and better, Megan.
I know.
I have no idea where we're going with this.
Oh, it's going to be good. A 19-year-old clearly intoxicated male enters the ER and is escorted back to a trauma room. I enter said room to find him standing, but barely, by the gurney, and he's wearing a long trench coat, so my interest is piqued. But concerned for
mine.
right? But concerned for his well-being, as his pre-admit diagnosis says severe pain in lower abdomen, he must sure is leading to his imminent death. So I ask him 20 question quick trauma assessment skills, and I say, first, young man, let's get you on this gurney so I can start assessing you properly. I'm instantly mad at the triage team member that brought him to a room for not properly securing his safety and getting him on the gurney. Like, she doesn't understand why he's standing there. Out of the corner of my eye, I see said teammates who I'm mad at peeking around the trauma room curtains like fucking Cheshire cats. What the hell, I'm thinking. So I say, sir, we need to remove your coat and get you laid down. Have you been drinking tonight, young man? I hated college hazing week, she said, in parentheses, as deaths did occur. So she was worried.
Sure. Yeah.
Yes, I've been drinking, he says, but he's still not taking his coat off.
Oh, God.
Getting a little impatient, I state, get on the cot, please. And he says he can't. And I say, get on the cot. And he says, I can't. And at that moment, he whips open his trench coat. Don't call my mom, he pleads. And there in all its glory is a vacuum cleaner attachment attached to his manlyhood at full salute.
Don't call my mom.
Yes.
What is the vacuum cleaner part of it?
The attachment is firmly attached. He's obviously been using it while he was at full salute. Now, as nurses, she states, we try not to laugh at patients.
Oh, of course.
We did swear a duty to protect their rights, and it's been a long week already, and I decided I had already had a hazing patient in the ICU with alcohol poisoning and one with body traumas from a fall from a balcony too, so she's had enough.
Oh, God.
She said, unfortunately, my mouth responded before my brain responded as I simply stated to my young man, what the fuck, dude? With some help from my teammates, the snickering fucker she refers to them as, we managed to get him on the gurney and I get his assessment done. But the attachment is stuck and it is not budging.
Oh, no. This is like a two dogs breeding situation.
And then she says, yes.
Wait for the swelling to come down.
Yeah, right. So she says a purple helmet was an understatement for what this thing looks like.
Oh, no.
So labs are drawn, including, of course, a blood alcohol level, and the ER doc was paged. Back then, admitting doctors all rotated ER calls, she says. As the doctor, who happened to be a surgeon on call, arrived, chart in hand, I briefed him. The doctor and I discussed alternatives because, after all, an engorged penis for over 3 to 4 hours can be a serious problem. Our young man's alcohol level was not supporting his ability to be IV sedated, so he was smashed.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
I turned to the doctor and said, with a shitty grin on my face, let me handle this one. Having worked together for years, he agreed. We approached the patient as I took his hand and compassionately looked him in the eyes and said, I'm sorry, but because of the amount of alcohol in your system, the only treatment is to surgically cut it off. The tube, he asked, and she said, no, sir, your penis. Our patient promptly vomited and fainted, and a minute later, I picked the tube off of his flaccid, albeit bruised penis. Lesson learned. Patient was not compromised in any way, and I was a very satisfied nurse exiting the room. The doctor leaves, shaking his head, and says, remind me never to piss you off. Just another day in the life of a critical care trauma nurse. Also, yes, I am Megan's mother, and now you know where she gets it from. So that's my mom's story.
Oh,
Yep.
Oh, mama.
We hope that we have bathed you, ladies, so that you have some laughter now as you leave us today.
That was great.
Oh,
That
Lord.
was great. Yes.
She did say, your mom did comment on one of our things once that she had the stories she could tell.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Now, I love that she shared one with us. I thought she was going to say, I'm going to call your mom. Because that will take away your boner in no time.
No time? Yeah, it could.
Right? Right?
We'll remember that for the future.
Right. I have 4 boys. I'll remember that.
Okay.
Oh, thank you guys so much for taking 2 hours out of your day today to spend with us. It was truly just wonderful connecting again with you, Jamie, and
meeting you,
Jessi. And please keep in touch and just thank you so much.
No, thank you. It was a great time, and you ladies are amazing. Seriously.
Well, we like to think
it's
so.
been fantastic. We've enjoyed it, and I really enjoyed ending on the purple helmet there. That was great.
Yes. And Jamie, I can't wait till you find your next survivor, because I want to read your next book before you've even written it, just so you know.
Right. And then we'll just
I appreciate
keep
that. I'll try
on.
not to be personally terrified hearing that.
Okay.
Great. Fine.
Oh, God. Well, thanks so much. Have a wonderful rest of your Sunday, ladies.
Thank
You
you.
too. Thanks so much.
Thanks,
Bye.
Bye.
All right. Thank you all so much for hanging in with us, and hope you enjoyed that episode as much as we enjoyed recording it.
They gave beautiful details, but it is not a replacement for that book. I can't advocate for it enough. It's the Christmas season. If you have people that like this type of documentary and survival,
Yes.
I mean, not all true crime ends happy, and this is a sad story, but it is a survivor story.
I do want to also give a warning that Jamie does include the details of how the bodies were found and how they were murdered, and it is gruesome.
Yes.
And very detailed, and it was not something that I felt comfortable bringing up with Jessi on the phone.
Correct.
So if you definitely want those details there in the book. And so, yeah, just I love that you point out, would make a wonderful gift for other true crime lovers as well.
Yeah.
So it's called I Am Jessica by Jamie Collins. Go and get it. And also, there are certain Amazons, like Amazons kind of go by like your hub of what's close to you. So some people have said that it's been sold out on Amazon. Google it, because there's a lot of different other ways. Walmart, Target, all of the
Barnes and Nobles.
Yes.
For those of you that like book porn.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, just so, if you want to know what book porn is, it's when you walk in the Barnes and Nobles and you take a deep breath and you go,
and you get excited.
Yes.
Yes.
That's
book porn right there. So there are copies available everywhere. So pick that up. And thank you so much again for listening. And we hope that you guys keep it curious.
And keep listening. Bye-bye.
Bye.